Very good afternoon, everyone. Hello, children. Good afternoon. So I'm Jane, and I've been in the early childhood field since year 2000. So for the most of my career, I've been a teacher, and then I took on roles subsequently as a principal, a curriculum specialist, and then an adjunct lecturer. So I'm quite objective-driven as a parent. So a very different parenting style and lifestyle from Charmaine's. So I was very excited when I got to know about this Read to Me initiative, and then when Dr. Chen asked, whether we could join this panel discussion. So I was actually very nervous because I said, tell a story, I cannot tell a story, Dr. Chen. I'm someone structured, and you have a script, and if it's spontaneous, I think I will not be able to do it. So then started the process of me looking for videos and photos. So I know Charmaine mentioned that I'm going to do the 5 to 8. So I was looking through my albums. I think I might also touch a bit on the younger age groups, because that's kind of like the journey, and I thought it's important to just move from there. So to just start off, I was just looking through, and I really wanted to just get us thinking about what a good story means, so what it means for you. Yeah, because for me, I think any story could really be a good story if it's well told. And you don't have to be a trained early childhood educator or teacher to tell a good story. So for me, it's also about when my child's engaged. So that really means that that story is probably well told, or that the child thinks it's a good story. So we'll move on. So when is the right age to start reading to your child? So shall we have some audience participation? So how many of you think it's from infancy? Maybe can we have things from infancy? So we have a group of parents who are generally already very knowledgeable and interested in reading. I think that's why you're here. So yes, I mean from infancy, that's when we start reading to our children. And if we have to think about the benefits, I probably don't have to spell it out by the fact that you're here. You see the benefits of reading. And as I was preparing for the slides, I asked my husband, he's like, you don't have to present this, the parents can just Google it. And the whole list of benefits that come up, which is true. Yeah, so I mean, apart from the developing of vocab and promoting of imagination. So for my family, it's really about the bonding, because we don't have time to go to the library weekly, like Charmaine. So I used to stay with my in-laws. So I can't put basket of books everywhere in the toilet because I live with many people. So I just wanted to share some of the books that my children really like. So this grouchy, or rather the bad-tempered ladybird, is actually about a story about this really grouchy ladybird. So it actually met another ladybird, and all it wants to do is to pick up a fight. So this is really like my son, Josh, who loves to pick up a fight with his sister. He provokes her all the time. So although I've got this lovely photo here, which I absolutely like, but they don't look like this all the time. So they're always fighting. So this is something that he really relates to. And then there's this other one which I personally like because of the illustration. So if you look at it, it's the old lady who swallowed a fly. I mean, there are many versions, but if you look at the circle, so it gets bigger as they eat, as she eats different animals. So at the end of it, so if you look at the whole, it's getting bigger. Yeah, and this has lots of rhyming words. So my son takes to this a lot better because he's not really as academically inclined. So if you look at the whole at the end, it's really a huge hole because she swallowed a horse and she died, of course. Yeah, so I brought these here, so if you'd like to have a look at it later, you could. We don't have many books like Charmaine, so we only have a few books, and we don't have time to go to the library. So then we have books like Problems. So this is a whole set with anger, sadness, Boy at the Window, which talks about a child being handicapped. So Problems is one of our favorite books. Yeah, also because between the two children, they do have lots of problems. At first, when you first have a child, you hope your child will pick up language and when is he going to start to talk? And the moment they start talking, you kind of wish okay, so can you be quiet? That's what I say most of the time. I'm on the phone, can you please be quiet? So this talks about children solving a problem. So I think Charmaine mentioned, like, you know, she uses books for different reasons. So I use this as well to kind of just manage the household. Yeah, so then there's Wrote Down. So this obviously would be for my daughter. Yeah, so she started reading this. So just a bit more about my two children. So Josh is K1, he's turning 5 in May. So he hasn't really started reading, but I put reading because he's becoming interested in words. Yeah, so he really loves picture books. So if there's like too much text, he is not interested. So those would be the books that Sophia would read. And yeah, dinosaurs is his favorite animal. Yeah, and Sophia's in P2, so she's at Henry Park Primary. And most of my friends say it's a place where we hothouse children. Yeah, so they think I'm quite crazy to have put my child there, because as a trained professional, I really want the holistic education for my child. So of course, you know, when I had my firstborn, I was really hardworking. I read to her every day. So the day she was diagnosed, of course, I went back and I asked myself, what did I not do right? Like, why would my child have speech delay? But then I find out that, oh, so there's a history in my husband's family. Like, I should have screened my husband before I married him. But then again, so she got diagnosed, and then like we had an option whether you want to go for early intervention or not. And I'm just very glad that I did, because then eventually her speech really got polished and she was picked to be the MC for her K2 graduation concert. So that was really an achievement for herself. So only I could understand my child. So her output was not something that people could understand. Like, she would say, I want to eat fish ball. It's fish ball, but she couldn't say it. So I wanted to actually, as an educator, I really wanted her to learn at her own pace, and I think maybe a bit too early. So it was when her pre-nursery teacher said, we can't really understand what Sophia is saying. So then I took her for the assessment. So she really loves reading, and she's quite academically inclined. So Sophia, when I started looking for like videos and photos, haven't like looked at them in a long while. So I found books of Sophia, like, you know, at 6 months, 8 months. We don't have many books, but those were the few books that I've been using with her. And as a hardworking parent, when I first had my first child, right? So I would read like the red and black books, because children like of that infant age can see only like 2 or 3 colors. Yeah, and then I started that. Then we move on to picture books. Unfortunately, I couldn't find anything of Josh, because I realized that I was living with my in-laws. I was working, I was doing my master's in education when I was pregnant, and then after that I tried to finish my studies. So time really wasn't there, and I do feel very guilty that I didn't read as much to my second child. Yeah, so I don't know whether like anyone has read this Gruffalo's Child before. So this is a book which has quite a bit of text. So like, I mean, I wouldn't quite consider this very appropriate for a 2-year-old. Yeah, but I also like managed to only find this video of my child. So if you look at like the Gruffalo's Child, so there's another book which is like part 1, because that's the Gruffalo, and it's got like an interesting twist to it. So it's by Julia Donaldson, and like maybe we should read it together. So since it's a read to me workshop, yeah. So shall we try, parents? Yeah. So the Gruffalo said, let's do it together. 1, 2, 3.
The Gruffalo said that no Gruffalo should ever set foot in the deep dark wood.
Why not?
Why not? Because if you do, the big bad mouse will be after you. I met him once, said the Gruffalo. I met him a long, long time ago. What does he look like? Tell me, Dad. Is he terribly big and terribly bad?
Yeah, so this was something I read to my daughter, but I can't possibly split the 2 children most of the time. So my son will be exposed to this book. Yeah, like, and I mean, I didn't realize that he was reading this, but I must have videoed it back then when he was about 2, because it was such an achievement for my child who doesn't read. Yeah, so his sister would have just read this whole book, but not Josh. Yeah, so I think like, because we read it almost every day, so he loves the Gruffalo's Child also, because we watch the YouTube video. So like Charmaine, so we watch the story, and then I think he could relate to it better. But for me, I think it's also about always, you know, ensuring that the child has a book, so we don't really rely heavily on things in YouTube. Yeah, but it's just complimentary when we show it. So the expression and tone. So I realized, you know, at that moment that yes, the expression and tone, like you read beautifully, and if you do it with your children, like that expression that you have is really something they mimic, like they imitate how you do it. So when I watch this, like, okay, give myself a pat on the back for like reading with some expression and tone. Yeah, so yeah, so then this is Sophia at 3.5, enjoying a picture book. So I really try to follow her pace. Like, she's a child with many questions. So I also try to cash in on her prior knowledge. So like if we've been to the zoo, we don't go that often. Like we didn't do so when my second child came along, because we just have no time to go, and to attend to 2 children is really quite challenging. Yeah, on my own, because my husband needs to work most of the time. So like if you look at like children's prior knowledge and also what we talk about reading with expression, so in yesterday's Straits Times, I don't know whether you all caught that article, but there was this article about reading, and it says that if parents engage with their children, you act out during reading and you ask them questions. So when they did this international study, so at primary 4, that evaluates comprehension and reading, the children who have had that exposure actually do better than the ones who didn't. So you know the 304 hours Charmaine mentioned, like, yeah, that's very important investment. Yeah, so you really need to invest that time, even if it's 5 or 10 minutes. The books I use are quite simple, yeah, but I mean someone gave this to me actually, and I only want a teddy hug and I'll quickly go to sleep. So I'm trying to I recall that I was trying to film this because it's so nice to have a 姐姐 reading to your brother, right? But then if you can see, he's like tumbling around. Yeah, so I think the interest again, like the child may not be interested, but I think we constantly expose. Yeah. So so for them, like it's really about the sibling bonding. So if you've got 2 children, like maybe it's nice to encourage them to the older one to read to the younger one, just for that practice. So she gets to practice, and also like the younger child gets the pre-net exposure. And I think it's the importance of reading aloud. Yeah, so I think many of the times, you know, when our children like start reading, like, okay, you can read, so you read on your own. But actually they much prefer to be read to, just like ourselves. Like, I'll be happy to hear a story anytime than me narrate a story. Yeah. So this is Goldilocks and the 3 Bears. So this is like when he was much older. Yeah, so he's about like 3 when he did this, and he can finally like sit and read with his sister. And I deliberately got a big book thinking that it would interest him better. I got this at a sale, which was just $10. I know big books are always like $40 over, and I don't really need a big book at my house. Yeah, and I've already stopped teaching at that point, but I thought it would be good to just interest him. So for both my children, like I had to adapt my style, so I cannot use the same approach with Josh and Sophia. So with Sophia, it was more story reading. Because I am generally not very creative, I can't just tell a story. So with Josh, I actually have to really juice my creativity because he is not so interested in the text. So we look at the photo, so like what Charmaine did. So if we see something and that captures his interest, I quickly cash in on that and try to turn that into something that might relate to reading. So you become more conscious of it. And then like type of books, so I also have to be quite selective. So he only has that 1 or 2 favorites, like the old lady who swallowed a fly versus Sophia, who might have a wider repertoire of books that she likes. And then reading for pleasure versus reading pressure. So actually we do want to encourage that reading for pleasure, but as a parent, I am very pressurized. So when I'm with Josh, I find myself being very conscious of the words, like, does he know this word or not? And it was like, so we went in, and then the first thing in my orientation kit, right, so I opened the file and I saw page 1, 100 words that your child can identify, and then page 2, so tick the words that your child can identify. So I thought, oh, okay, maybe it's just this school. But then, of course, I was worried, not for Sophia, because she could read most of the words, fortunately. So I looked at this list, I took a photo of it, and I saved it in my phone. And then I told my husband, I think we need to start preparing Josh for P1. Yeah, because she's 7, he's 4, but I'm worried about Josh because he's not academically inclined, and for me, I really want to read for pleasure. But then I look at that list, right, and I think like he may not know the words, and I don't think I can check off the list. Yeah, so that's my dilemma as a parent, because as an educator, I know it's very important to read for pleasure. So I'm trying to just share, some of my personal barriers and dilemmas. Yeah. So, so with Josh, this is something that was one of his recent achievements. So there's this, there's a car park near our house, and it's got this word "in." So I couldn't find it. I didn't take a photo of it, but I found this on the web. So this word "in" kind of caught his attention because he saw this car, like we were waiting for a bus, and he saw a car drive in, and he said, "The car is driving in." And then I was like, okay, suddenly excited already, because the word "in." So I said, "Oh, did you notice that there's a word 'in'?" Yeah, then I quickly point to the word I started to be very conscious, and then so then he said, "Yeah, it's I-N." So he started, relating to the letters that he knows. So he said, "It's I-N." So then the next time we saw this word "bin," let's bin it. We want to have a clean and green country, right? So we have lots of this. So we found the word "bin," and then he started getting interested. So then we have this book, which is the Bad-Tempered Ladybird, right? So there's this page that says at 5:30, the bad-tempered ladybird said to the whale's fin, and "Hey, you want to fight?" Because this ladybird really likes to fight. So then every time we read, I will consciously just point to that word. So I don't go to all the words, but I'll just say, "Oh, fin." Yeah, and then because this is a book he already enjoys, so I'm not saying first time you would go in and say fin, fin, fin. So there is a difference, because when I say well told, so if you notice, I try to get him excited, and then I tried to say "Oh, Finn, did you notice it?" as compared to, so I also relate to some of the anecdotes from my sister or my friends, and I know that when they see that word, it's "Okay, read this word." So there's a difference there, because if you say, "Okay, read this word," "Can you read this word?" They see it at the car park, versus "Oh wow, did you see that? It's something that you read before," yeah, you noticed it. So again, it's your expression and your tone. Yeah, I know it can be very tiring after a long day. Then you go back, the last thing you want is to pick up a book and do reading. But then that investment and that expression, when it goes together, makes a huge difference for the reading experience at home. So then after dinner, I thought okay, I want to try this. The tiger mom in me came up. So I said, "You know what? We're going to play a game today. We're going to draw a circle." I put the word "in." Okay, so this is the teacher part of me, because I thought, okay, I got to be more hardworking with my son, So I said, "Okay, I'll do 5. And it's 5. He's turning 5. He cannot read. So I do feel the pressure. And then I said, okay, so we read fin and bin. So I tried to do her blending was, to me, Charmaine's child is very advanced. Even the world issues she talked about, yeah, a child can do all this, but my child's 5, he doesn't do this, but this is what I got him started on. So this is one word family which has the in, the tin, the fin. So actually, at one glance, you already know 6 words. Yeah, it's just one of the strategies. And then the next thing that we're gonna do, or we have started, is actually at. Because you see this high frequency word everywhere. So at. Now that he knows his letters, so I go at, and then we find these words in book. So we turn it into a game. I know that book, "Boy at the Window," would have the word "at." So I deliberately picked this book to read to him. I read it to him last night. And then I waited, I wanted him to say "at." Yeah, and then "Yes, at." Then one more. Yeah, so this is one strategy. You don't have to be a trained teacher, you don't have to go for courses just to learn it, but it's just things say "at" or "aya." So these are some of the family words that you can easily just Google and find out how to do. But I think I have that focus really because my kids are older. So apart from reading for pleasure, I do want some part of the academic aspect to come up. Yeah. So then again, we have the home routines. So how many of you do grocery shopping with your children? You do? Yeah. So I can see a handful of you raising your hand. So we do the same thing. So we watch TV, play computers. So actually, if there are subtitles that appear, those are contextual, so it relates to the child. Reading magazines, newspapers, I love reading newspapers. So if I see a picture of, say, a panda that's just had its young, I know that would interest my son, so I would try to share that. but it's not deliberate because I already have the newspapers anyway. Making grocery lists. So actually, when I first noticed the difference between my children was when we wrote this grocery list. Because my older child, Sophia, is more academically inclined. So when we go to the supermarket, like she would write and she would put, like, okay, so we'll buy fish, so she'll write F. So actually my horror came when my son drew an F, like a fish, but then I thought, okay, creativity, maybe he's just more creative. So then I tried again, like, okay, shall we make a grocery list? Because we really need to get, and there are no more eggs. So then I noticed that actually my children are very different, and even though I couldn't help comparing, but because they are unique in their own ways, I stopped making a grocery list with my son because it didn't interest him. Yeah, so he would rather draw than write. So I left it, like if he would like to draw, he could draw. Yes, then maybe from the pictures that he draws, we would then expand on that and say, oh yes, so we'll buy a fish because you drew a fish. Yeah, but I think it was just my own expectations as a mother that why is it that Sophia and you like went to the same school, you had the same parents, you even had the same preschool teacher from 2 to 4, and they turn out very differently. Yeah, so I started to really recognize the uniqueness of each child. Yeah, and I think that was just through our home routines. So reading labels, so he would rather read a label than to do a grocery list. So the children had different interests. So writing on emails, they do see me doing work at home. So if he wanted to type something, I would take that as an incidental opportunity for learning. Birthday cards, so his sister loves drawing and writing birthday cards to her primary school friends. So he kind of like participates in it now. And then reading or receive items with print, mainly letters. Yeah, so I get him to help open letters. Yeah, but just be careful because like some kids tear the letters. Yeah, so you just have to tell them how to do it. So these are just the regular home routines which might be opportunities for reading for you as well. So I wanted to just talk a bit about my children's cousins. This is my sister June. So all her 3 children have dyslexia. Yeah, and her eldest child Judy, the one at the back, she actually started reading only at 7 plus when she entered P1 because they have the intervention program for dyslexia. So she joined the association and goes for weekly classes. But interestingly, she has started reading Nancy Drew this year. She's 9. Yeah, so actually when we look back, right, I mean one thing that my sister and I were brought up by different grandmothers, and one thing that we really took away is every time we saw our mother, she would read to us. So we said there must be something right that we've done. I mean, with her child Judy, because there was all this bombardment, reading for pleasure. So her motivation now is she really wants to buy a book by Nancy Drew, and she really wants to be read too. But that also motivated her to read. So I mean, my sister's children are like 6, 7, and 9. So because the age gap is quite close, so it's actually very busy for her, and she doesn't have time to read to her children, but she makes an effort to invest that 5 minutes or 10 minutes a day, but not every day, so maybe about 3 to 4 times a week. Yeah, and that really helped. And I think like it's about knowing your strength. So as a parent, if you think like I'm not a good storyteller, then what do I do? Because then maybe I might have to just see what my child's interested in and pick it up from there. So I think like in terms of reading with expression, so because it's just you and your child, like for some, like for my sister, she feels like it's very paiseh if someone, like I say paiseh because like, it's embarrassing when someone watches you and try to be so dramatic, but that makes an impact. So like if you're embarrassed doing it publicly, you don't need to, it's just you and your child in the room. Yeah, so you might want to explore that a bit. The other thing is to be creative, because what can you do if you don't have time to go to the library? I think most of us have a phone here, if not all. So like, if you just maybe Google Goldilocks and the 3 Bears, and then from there, you might then see that book if you go to a library. Like you might not go every week, but you might go like say in a month, or you see that book somewhere and you might want to buy it. So those will be maybe other opportunities that arise because you've already sparked the child's interest. Yeah, so so I wanted to actually share this book since it's a read to me. Yeah, I thought we could read this. Yeah, so this book, Problems by Joy Cowley, I find it helpful for parents with 2 children because I never like saw how this book was so useful when I only had 1 child. Yeah, so problems. So the first page talks about like how do you solve a problem. If you like to, you can read it together. So my brother Jim broke my doll, so I hit him. We had a big fight and we both cried. Then we wouldn't talk to each other. How many of you have 2 children? Quite a few, right? Yeah, almost like majority. So actually, once they are of this age, like 5 and 8, I have a lot of verbal wars. I have fights, actual fights, because I think they're learning to self-regulate. Yeah, so this book on social emotional aspects is quite helpful. So, and this broken doll thing, I can definitely relate to it. Yeah, so our big sister Anne took us into her room. You two have to talk about this, she said. I'm not talking to him, I said. He broke my doll. Jim said, I'm not talking to her, she hit me. So usually the 2 children will not want to talk about it, so this is something they can relate to. So you have a problem, said Anne. You can't solve the problem if you don't talk to each other. So parents with maybe slightly older children, so this is a common thing. It's his fault, I said. It's her fault, Jim yelled. So sometimes if you are not in the situation, and both say it's the other person's fault, you don't really know, but I think through reading, like you could maybe help solve that problem. So listen, said Anne, when 2 people quarrel, both are at fault. Now tell each other how you feel. So I said to Jim, I didn't mean to hit you, I'm sorry. I got angry because you broke my doll. Jim said, I'm sorry too. I didn't mean to break it. I'll fix it for you. So to get a child to suggest a solution. So good, said Anne. Now you're friends again. Always remember, the way to solve a problem is to talk about it. No violence, no shouting, no sulks. So there's another page to this, but I didn't put it up because the language is not quite appropriate. Yeah, so like even with books, sometimes we do see words that maybe personally I might not want my child to pick it up. So I might then omit that when I read. Yeah, so it's about being selective as well. So because it's a Read to Me initiative, so I thought like maybe something for us to take away from the session from our team here is to read regularly. So how regular is really depending on you, but make it a regular routine of the family. Enjoy the session, so enjoy the bonding with your child. Be authentic and do it in a natural context, because actually everything that you have at home is already going to contribute to the reading experience. And be dramatic. Yeah, so use your expression. Yeah, do what you need to engage and make your child enthusiastic about the session. So I think parents are, your child's first teachers. So yes, we could depend on the school to help nurture that reading. But then, like Charmaine, so once a child passes like the 4-year-old mark, I think somehow parents do get anxious, like even trained educators like ourselves. So I think it's still about making the child interested and engaging the child to just have that love for reading. Yeah, so books really aren't just words. I mean, a book has a string of words, but it's really something that takes you to places and you meet different people in the book. So whether it's an animal or someone you could relate to in terms of your experience. Yeah, so there's really no enjoyment of reading. Yeah, so I'll hand the time back to Dr. Choy.